everyone, I'm really excited to share with you today my second handbag purchase of 2018, just in time for Christmas. It's a vintage Delvaux Brillant handbag with gold hardware. For those of you who've watched my bag collection review video, you'll know that I've been searching for a really long time for my dream brown bag. Louis Vuitton canvas prints don't count. And finally, in my 4th year of collecting, I found her. It's really bizarre to think that even though Delvaux is the world's oldest leather goods brand and the second most expensive after Hermes, tied in place with Chanel, very little is known about the brand and their most iconic handbag, the Brilliant. So today I thought we could dissect the mystery of Delvaux through 7 topics: the history of the brand, main design features, size variations, quality, accessories, my purchase story, and my verdict. Whether you're interested in adding one of these bags to your collection or you just want to know more about a long-standing but discreet label, I do hope you find today's video useful and interesting. A huge thank you to my subscribers for another year of your love and support. I'm actually jetting off in 2 weeks to go to Europe, so I'm going to have new bags, new shoes to share with you in the new year. Let's get into it. 8 years before Hermes and 25 years before Louis Vuitton, there was Delvaux in Brussels, Belgium, which makes Delvaux the oldest luxury leather goods brand in the world. Delvaux is not only the official supplier to the royal Belgian family, but it's also older than the kingdom itself, since Belgian independence from the Netherlands only happened 1 year later in 1830. This is probably the most epic way that you could ever start a brand history lesson. Like Louis Vuitton, Delvaux began as a luggage company, and their handmade high-quality travel goods were in high demand, as by 1875, Belgium had the highest density of rail networks in the world. Delvaux understood that the revolution in travel meant women needed handbags because they liked to keep precious belongings close by. Therefore, Delvaux patented bag designs as early as 1898, with their first ever handbag design in 1908. In the early 20th century, Delvaux began to lose its popularity. This is where Franz Schwennick, an engineer with no experience in leather goods, took over the business from the Delvaux family and introduced the radical concept of seasonal designs, imitating the way haute couture marketed their collections as limited and one-off. Today, every luxury label offers seasonal pieces in their bags, shoes, and accessories. So it's easy to forget that what we think is a fashion norm actually began as a groundbreaking 20th century innovation with leather goods. It is considered that Delvaux's closest match in the world of luxury is Hermes, as they both source the highest quality hides from the best French and Italian tanneries, and they're both known for their handmade, labor-intensive finishes and great attention to detail. Led by a team of designers rather than a single creative director, Delvaux upholds tradition, excellence, mastery, and discipline. Quoting merchandising director CHRISTINA ZELLER, "We do not pretend to be fashion or running after young customers. We are timeless but never boring and know how to stay contemporary." Delvaux's ateliers have always been and continue to be in Belgium, although from 1988 they also opened ateliers in France, and apparently from 2010 they opened one in Vietnam as well. In terms of design, Delvaux has invented more than 3,000 different models of handbags since 1829, all of which are sketched and catalogued in their Golden Book. Now, again comparing Delvaux to Hermes, Delvaux even has its own equivalent of the Kelly, a famous and iconic handbag fit for royalty. Le Brilliant was designed in collaboration with Paul Goethals, a renowned Belgian architect, to celebrate Belgium hosting the 1958 World Fair. Le Brilliant won a design award at the Expo and is considered to be a perfect representation of 1950s style, a synthesis of clean lines and hidden complexity. Le Brilliant is classic, feminine, and stately in its appearance. The design also successfully incorporates the brand's logo. The gold buckle is a subtle but bold D rotated sideways. Apparently, the way Le Brilliant was made 60 years ago continues to be largely the same process today. It consists of 64 pieces of leather and takes 8 hours to assemble by hand. The other iconic Delvaux bags include Le Tempête, which is chic and fearless, inspired by the adventure of sailing; Le Pin, which France's wife Solange designed as a fuss-free, informal bag suitable for a new generation of career women; and Le Madame, which is practical yet compact, inspired by a new era signaling liberation and freedom of movement. Delvaux's quiet reputation can be considered due to the limited international marketing, which was primarily focused in Europe, Japan, and Russia, and also that Delvaux didn't introduce any significant changes to their established bag models and styles. For example, historically, Delvaux bags were always made of leather and they were always in a neutral color. It was only in the last decade that Delvaux began to experiment with contemporary, bright, happy colors, new hardware options, non-leather materials, exotic skins, and metallic, shiny or matte finishes. Delvaux's timeless elegance is finally receiving a modern twist. I remember the exact moment I discovered Delvaux. Rihanna had on her arm a bag I had never seen before, and this bag was simple, clean, elegant, and structured. It was ticking all of my boxes. It turns out that the Le Brilliant Rihanna was sporting was part of the Ceci n'est pas un Delvaux campaign, where only 10 were released worldwide. Translating as "This is not a Delvaux," the bags were a collaboration with Chicago Barneys to celebrate the famous surrealist Belgian artist René Magritte, whose iconic artwork states "This is not a pipe," and also to mark the 50th anniversary of the Le Brilliant silhouette. This is not the only time that Delvaux has shown love for their native artists. They have a collection of bags and accessories which are infused with charming Magritte motifs. Here, the Tempête and Brilliant handbags open to reveal a cloudy sky, while iconic symbols such as the apple and bowler hat are quilt-stitched, showing off their artisans' skill in delicate, fine embroidery. Another fascinating Delvaux collection was the 2017 Les Miniatures Belgitude, which consisted of 7 miniature versions of Le Brilliant, each representing a symbol of Belgium and celebrating the brand's cultural origins. This year, to celebrate the opening of 2 new Delvaux boutiques in London, they've now created the Miniatures So British collection, which are again handmade tiny emblems of 4 British icons displaying Delvaux's legendary craftsmanship and Belgian wit. Not only is the Delvaux brand seen as comparable to Hermes, but the iconic Brilliant handbag can also be seen as having design similarities to the famous Kelly. While the Kelly came first in 1935, it wasn't until 1956 that it became famous after it was seen on the arm of Grace Kelly, the Princess of Monaco. Considering Le Brilliant came 2 years later in 1958, it is possible that it may have drawn some inspiration from the Kelly, considering the level of media attention and connotations of royalty at the time. The similarities include a top handle, fold over front flap, tapered front profile, tapered accordion side structure, and interior organization, where it is a single open volume with a zipped pocket at the rear and slip pocket at the front. However, I believe they have 2 distinct design differences where the bags really come into their own unique identities. The first being the style of the front closure. While the Kelly has these strong horizontal lines from the draw straps, mimicking the bag form and reinforcing a somewhat stern, formal design, the Brilliant softens the bag structure by introducing curves in the front flap, curves in the vertical belt strap, and of course the curved D in the hardware clasp. To me, the second main aesthetic difference is how Delvaux continues with this philosophy of softening by rounding the bag edges, like an extension of the Kelly Retourne bag style. To take a step back, for those of you who don't know, the Kelly is offered in Retourne or cellier structure, depending on whether the stitching is internal or external. The former results in edges which are more relaxed and rounded, like what you get on the Birkin, while the cellier external stitch creates edges which are incredibly sharp and clean. The Brilliant is stitched in the Retourne style, which means the leather has been turned inside out for stitching and then flipped back so you can see the piping. But the inherent design intention seems to be eliminating the sharp corner, so you get instead this gently rounded base. The injection of all these subtle extra curves into the Brilliant result in a look that's distinctively feminine, graceful, a slightly traditional touch in a timeless silhouette, and a tendency to look slightly casual. Of course, getting down to the minute details, both designs offer their own unique finishing style. For example, the handle on the Brilliant is taller and narrower, like the proportion of the Birkin handle. And I assume this extra height is to give you greater comfort and flexibility when you're carrying the bag off your arm. Therefore, even though this is a small bag size, I'm not limited to hand carrying only, which I assume may be the case with some of the smaller Kelly bags. It's interesting to note that Delvaux has chosen to stitch the handle along the top exterior edge, showing it off visually, while Hermes does the opposite by locating the stitch discreetly inside. This also means that when you hold it, the handle feels much more solid and secure because you can feel the firm leather edge in your grip. It's interesting that a ring in matching gold is used to pinch both front edges. It looks like the bag has piercings. I presume its purpose is to strengthen the stitching since it does appear to be strained here, but perhaps also to lift the top flap so that it doesn't scrape against the leather edge underneath. Although Delvaux offers exotic and patent leathers alongside fun materials like PVC, the classic basic options for the Brilliant are either box calf or supple grained leathers. Mine is box calf, which is particularly popular in vintage bags. As a stiff leather, it's exceptional in holding its shape over time. However, it does reveal scratches easily, as you can see here from the previous owner. Since the Brilliant has elements of both ladylike elegance and relaxed society in its design, what type of leather you pick will suggest more of a particular style. If you like to look prim and proper, go with box calf. But if you want a more casual, sporty look, then choose a supple leather as it will be more relaxed rather than standing stiff. The box leather is a dream. It's perfectly smooth, thick, durable, plush. Even though it reveals scratches easily, it feels like the type of leather that could survive another 50 years without aging. The interior lambskin is so supple, it sticks slightly to your fingertips and is as soft as what you get with iconic Chanel lambskin. Even the fabric lining inside the two pockets feels luxurious. The material is thick with a slight texture. You can feel the Delvaux lettering when you run your fingers past. At first glance, in this light tan color, I actually thought it was suede because it carries much of the same premium feeling. Standard hardware is gold or palladium with white or black offered on special collections. Whether the gold is 18 karat like Hermes or simply gold tone like Chanel, I actually don't know. So if you have that information, please share it in the comments below. Or if you have a Delvaux store that you can ask, because here in Sydney we unfortunately don't have any. As you all know, I'm obsessed with gold hardware, especially when paired with brown. So I was over the moon when I found the Brilliant in this dreamy color combination. My only concern is that since the hardware is quite heavy, it is solid, not hollow metal, I am worried about the gold wearing away as the prong whacks against the clasp. This is especially going to happen if you're on the go and you leave the bag open like it is now. Every single step will result in the hardware vibrating and clanging upon itself. When I was researching this bag online, I found that the #1 concern raised by bag lovers was whether the belted front enclosure was going to be difficult to operate. Since this bag is pre-loved and the leather has softened slightly, it's not too stiff, but I do find that it's mainly a question of habit and practicing your technique. I find that the easiest thing to do is to push down gently on the top flap so that the leather strap loosens in the buckle. Then you can release the prong without force. Although it is easier to open with two hands, it is possible with only one hand, which is naturally the situation you face when you're carrying this bag without a shoulder strap. One-handed operation means you have to pull a lot more forcibly on the tongue while pushing up the prong to try and free it. The gentler option is to use two hands pushing down on the top of the bag, as I mentioned earlier. Fortunately, the bag does have protective feet, so worst case scenario, you can always set this bag down to free up both hands. The embossed Delvaux logo is concealed on the interior rear lining, which seems to be aligned with their philosophy of being discreet. However, this is only the case with vintage bags, as Delvaux more recently has relocated the stamp to the front, mimicking the Hermes style. I have to admit that I'm actually a big fan of the proud placement of the Hermes logo on the front exterior, because especially on the Birkin, if you pack away the top flap, you can wear the bag with the logo visible, which I think really shows the beauty of the precise lettering and adds a level of intricate detail for interest. Finally, online, several brilliant owners have stated that they believe this bag is lighter than the Hermes Kelly counterpart, but I'll discuss this in more detail later in a future separate video, as I am hoping to try and get a Kelly next year, which I can examine firsthand. Looking at this bag alone, it's not heavy, it's not light. I do believe it's a fair weight for the quality of the leathers and the hardware on display. Although the seller was not able to determine the date or age of this bag, there are two reasons for why I suspect it's vintage, one of which is the size. Delvaux offers the Brilliant in 8 sizes. From smallest to largest, it's the Charm, Mini, also known as the PM, and this is considered to be the best size for wearing crossbody, MM and GM. The other 4 models of the Brilliant have different proportions. The Pochette Brilliant is intended as a handheld clutch, while the Black Edition is even larger than the GM and designed to be a handheld traveling bag. We also have the Brilliant East-West models, which have an exaggerated width and reduced height, which I personally really like. And I was considering grabbing the East-West Mini since it's a bag proportion, which is completely different from the other handheld styles in my collection. As you know, I'm all about maximizing stylistic diversity. I personally gravitate towards smaller bags, not only because it's relative for my height and size, but also because with quality leathers inside and outside, it's not unusual that your luxury bag can be quite heavy. And I don't want to be breaking my arm every time I try to take my bag out. Therefore, aside from the East-West Mini, I felt that the Brilliant PM or MM would be the most suitable sizes for me. Interestingly, this vintage Brilliant is exactly halfway between the two sizes. Measured at the most extreme points, it's more than 24 centimeters wide, 20 centimeters high, 14 centimeters deep with a 12 centimeter handle height. With the tapered width, this is actually the smallest size that can fit the width of my wallet. So in hindsight, I'm really glad I didn't go with the PM. As cute as it is, it means I would only be able to fit small leather goods inside. Personally, I find the handle height quite tall in the Brilliant design, no matter which size you pick. So I am really glad that the bag body is on the smaller size, because otherwise the larger it gets, I think the bag starts to look a little bit bulky with the pronounced handle. Sadly, this vintage bag doesn't come with a shoulder strap, which I will discuss shortly. Otherwise, I do believe it's the maximum right size, which I could pull off crossbody. If it were a bit larger, say the width of the MM, it can probably fit a diary and tablet, which makes it more useful. Otherwise, the way the bag size is now, I believe it's large enough to fit my essentials, and yet it's still miniature and adorable on my frame, which gives it that feminine character. When it comes to size, be aware that choices in color and material type create the illusion of a larger or smaller bag. Typically, bright colored bags appear larger, while supple leathers result in a bag looking smaller because soft materials tend to rest upon itself rather than standing pronounced and stiff. It's essentially the bag equivalent of a person who's standing straight versus someone who's hunched in their posture. Aside from history and design, Delvaux's main commonality with Hermes is its tradition and continued dedication to the highest level of craftsmanship and quality. It's expected that your Delvaux handbag should last generations upon generations and is made out of the very best leathers and best artisan skill available on earth. I find that window shopping pre-loved bags is the best way to predict the future on how bag designs or bag materials will be worn and weathered. I found with the Brilliant that there was a tendency for the four rounded corners to be scraped. Perhaps because these protrusions make it harder to judge the exact size of the bag. The tongue tends to develop intense scratches and dents from the prongs scraping along the leather when you open and close it. Everything I just mentioned is the result of human habit and how we use our bags. There was no sign of stitches coming apart, discoloration, hardware tarnishing, handle seals unraveling, so it's pretty clear that 20-year-old vintage Brilliant bags are still standing strong. Looking at my own bag, aside from the light scratches on the box calf leather, there is only one mark on the internal lining, micro scratches on the front clasp, and slight fading of the gold on the bag feet. None of these minor signs of use bother me. All hardware gets micro scratches, the feet are meant to be used to protect the rest of the bag, and anything internal will only be noticed by myself, not anyone else. On one hand, I'm even grateful that someone has done the inevitable and scratched the box calf leather before me, because now the pressure of having to keep the leather pristine has been lifted from my own shoulders. With smooth leather like this, it's inevitable that one day an accident will happen and one day you will mark the surface. Since we don't have Delvaux stores in Sydney, I've had to resort to online forums to gauge whether there's any after-sales service, and it does seem that internationally Delvaux does offer long-term maintenance and bag spas. Apparently in their flagship Antwerp and Brussels stores, a Delvaux artisan is available every Monday, Friday and Saturday to answer technical questions raised by customers. I'm headed to Europe for Christmas and New Year's, but due to the extreme cold, I'm not really keen to bring along my Brilliant since leather is skin and can be affected by extreme temperatures. One day in the future when I head to Europe and it's temperate climate, I do want to bring my Brilliant along for a touch-up service and also to see whether or not they can add the optional shoulder strap. And that brings me to the next section. I'm a huge fan of wearing my bags hands-free, so I have to admit I was pretty disappointed that my vintage Brilliant didn't come with the option for a detachable shoulder strap. I have seen that there appears to be two ways for how it's done. Some bags have a concealed layer underneath the top flap, which the strap is threaded through, and I personally really enjoy this clean, minimal, hardware-free aesthetic. Other bags have two rings on either side of the handles where the detachable shoulder strap clasps onto, essentially a copy of how the Hermes Kelly works. I'm not sure which shoulder strap came first, or if it's a matter of choosing between the two options, like customizing your own bag. So if you do have the answers, please share below. I do want to try this in a future bag spa, whether Delvaux can add an extra leather layer underneath the top flap, because then I can magically give this bag a new life as a shoulder or crossbody accessory. Fingers crossed. Each bag also comes with a matching leather-bound mirror with embossed logo. I love this thoughtful feminine touch, but I must admit that floating around inside my bag, it just means I get my fingerprints all over it, which isn't great. So I've actually decided to retire the mirror into my wardrobe. I find it a bit strange that the corner isn't finished in the same way. Two corners seem to deliberately have the leather extend past, which really triggers my OCD. Some bag brands have a mirror on a strap attached to the bag, like my Balenciaga Lady, but I believe here it would have made the ladylike bag look a bit too casual. Plus, we already have a decorative accessory, which is the iconic D in matching gold hardware. Since Delvaux holds a relatively low profile, then even the overt branding, ironically, is subtle and can be a mysterious tease for people who aren't familiar with the label. The care booklet mentions that slight fade is possible and to keep the bag firmly away from extended sun and any water. The most interesting part is that the back of the booklet has the name of the master craftsman who created the bag, although mine is blank when it comes to the purchase details and sold date. As much as I love gift boxes, unfortunately my Brilliant only came with the dust bag, and this appears to be quite common with all the Delvaux vintage bags. I do wonder if it's because Delvaux has smaller exposure and therefore smaller market appeal that owners don't feel the value in holding onto boxes which take up a lot of room. Meanwhile with Hermes, no one is ever going to throw their gift box away. Everyone understands how much resale value is in all of Hermes packaging. The dust bag is fine linen, so it's beautiful to touch, highly breathable, neatly stitched, and the drawstrings are quite crazy. It's action-packed. Most brands change their dust bags over time, and Delvaux is the same. I believe now the logo is embroidered instead of simply being printed, and I suspect they may not use these crazy drawstrings anymore. It's intensely frustrating that if you don't buy your dream bag in the season it debuts, you are constantly playing catch up with the price hikes. Delvaux does not list their prices online, but supposedly their Brilliant PM is over $4,000 the Brilliant MM is almost $6,000, and the Brilliant East-West Mini starts from $5,000. I say from because there's a huge price variance depending on the leather type and color, with box calf tending to be more expensive than CHRISTINA, and for seasonal colors to be more expensive than the classics like black. As with all European brands, they're cheaper in Europe, and supposedly the lowest prices are found in Belgium. Unfortunately, I could not find online any European prices, so if you do have this information, please share it below. I was saving up and prepared to just bite the bullet and fork out a fortune to own this bag next year, when one very lucky day I discovered that a Japanese seller on eBay had listed this bag in this perfect size in near mint condition in my dream color combination for the very fair price of less than 1800 US. The very precise number, I think, is because it was converted from Japanese yen. I applied a 10% off eBay coupon, so I managed to get this bag for less than 2200 Australian. And amazingly, even though the Japanese seller declared the full value of this bag, Australian customs didn't charge me any taxes. I have two theories for why this may have happened. First of all, it was the day after a public holiday and the long weekend. So maybe they were short-staffed, maybe they were behind on schedule, maybe they were hungover. And secondly, the value was declared in Japanese yen, which was almost 200,000. So maybe all the extra digits made it really confusing and they didn't accurately convert it into its Australian value. Either way, I'm so grateful that it happened, because if I had to pay the taxes, it would have been at least another $400. So ultimately, I was able to buy this incredible, one-of-a-kind dream brown bag in near mint condition for under 2200 Australian, which if you compare it to almost 6,000 for the PM size and over 8,000 for the MM size, presents an unbelievable saving of 62% or 74%. It's incredible, and I think it shows that luxury bargains do exist. You just need to be patient and to be watching the market so you're aware of all the options available. I'll finish off by saying that this Japanese seller deals only in luxury goods, has operated since 1986, has a track record of 100% positive feedback for over 1,400 transactions as a seller, not as a buyer, and they guarantee authenticity, so I had absolute peace of mind. My subscribers will know that for a while I've been struggling with how to grow my collection so that it's classic and elegant while keeping it uniquely me, so that I'm not just another girl with the Chanel double flap or another girl with the Prada Saffiano. On that note, I'm actually trying to sell my Prada Saffiano, so if you're interested, please reach out to me. Discovering Delvaux and its incredible lineage and quality has felt like a step in the right direction. The Brilliant offers everything you would expect and more from a luxury label without casting you into the spotlight of being a carbon copy. I'm obsessed with the leather, the hardware, the super cute proportions, the feminine design, the clean lines, the timeless color. And I love the fact that when people see this bag in action, they can all agree that it looks amazing, but I have no clue as to what model or label it is. It builds intrigue and an outfit that's uniquely yours. Owning a stunning bag with a low profile does have its downsides though. If you ever want to sell, you're dealing with a much smaller market, and without market demand, there is no market premium. Aside from the one individual who adores your bag in exactly its specifications and they would be willing to pay the price, everyone else would most likely rather spend their thousands on the ever popular Chanel or Hermes or Dior, which they can also easily resell back to the eager market. However, if you're financially stable and don't need quick turnover of your bags for cash flow, you can consider investing in a top quality bag as a gamble for the future and how fashion tastes will shift. For example, even though the Brilliant has been around for 60 years, it was 2015 when the Brilliant PM suddenly hit mainstream popularity. So for anyone who owned the bag, it would have been a great time to sell, possibly for a profit. Although currently Delvaux bags are not investment bags, I am pretty confident that gradually over time they will start to have the reputation and interest that Hermes enjoys. So for that reason, alongside the fact that I do love the design of the Brilliant, I'm willing to invest in the future. If you're a fan of Hermes for their impeccable level of quality, especially their handcrafted leather goods, then Delvaux is the only other luxury label that speaks the same language. However, Delvaux does not match the same diverse array of leather types and colors which Hermes is renowned for, so this can be a sticking point if you're interested in customization or want a particular finish. Although I do own the Birkin, I can't compare the two bags directly on the topic of quality. To me, they're different designs and leather types which result in two completely different bags, both beautiful in their own way. However, one appeal of Delvaux over Hermes is that there are no games involved for you to acquire their bags. As long as you can afford the price tag, it's yours. As I mentioned in my Hermes Birkin review video, there are 4 ways to acquire the Birkin, 3 of which involve a lot of strategy and stress. Hermes always has the upper hand. To them, you're just another customer. If you want one of their most coveted bags, you have to work for it. And this type of experience can be very off-putting for a lot of luxury consumers. Design-wise, I believe all the subtle curves result in a bag that's super cute and slightly casual by nature. For that reason, I am really grateful that I got it in box calf leather and in a petite size. The stiff leather helps to give the bag a sharp silhouette so that it appears to be more suitable for formal occasions. And the small size makes it a perfect match for my heels and delicate dresses. If I had the detachable shoulder strap, it would further reinforce how versatile this bag is, going from day to night, casual to formal, which is exactly what I wanted when I picked this bag in the color brown. So wish me luck that one day I can have this bag serviced by Delvaux and also have the shoulder strap option added. I'll keep you updated on how that goes. I have to admit that probably my least favorite part of the bag is the front clasp. I do understand the design motivation with the subtle D, but to me it looks like a casual belt buckle flipped vertical, and it's not the easiest to use. With the amount of force involved, it's no surprise that over time your leather tongue is going to get damaged. While weight is associated with quality, I have to admit the front hardware is a bit too heavy, and I am worried about how it may distort the bag silhouette over time, especially if you ever wear this bag open. Thanks to fashionistas and celebrities, it's not unusual to see the Kelly worn gaping open, so I guess the look has gotten visually acceptable. But when it comes to the Brilliant, I don't think there's any chance of you being able to pull off this look. The bag looks pretty miserable with the front buckle weighing it down, so it just looks like you're torturing your bag. Finally, the way the leather tongue is stitched on at the front with the top standing proud feels like a superficial decorative element, and maintenance wise you do need to clean out this gap because this is where all the dust will sit. Although I bought this bag for a bargain price, it doesn't change the fact that I know its true value is about 6k. So this will be a bag that I baby, especially since it's box calf leather, which has zero tolerance for surface markings. That's fine for me. I do picture this bag as an occasion bag, also because it's miniature in size and therefore has limited carrying capacity. If you're someone who wants to use the Brilliant every day, then you probably want to choose a supple grained leather which can better hide the wear and tear, and probably opt for a larger size. Not only because it's more practical, it can fit a lot more of what you want to carry, but also because Brilliant starts to have a casual, youthful look which can work with more pieces in your wardrobe. But do note that with increasing bag size comes increasing weight. Like with all luxury goods, I don't really believe it's worth $6,000, but ultimately it's about perspective, and it can present significant price savings as an alternative to buying Hermes. We always talk about wanting to buy our forever bags, but it's as much a question of craftsmanship as it is style. There's no point finding your perfect timeless bag design when the quality can't keep up. And this is a critical point considering how many luxury labels today are reducing quality while increasing costs, selling you a less reliable product even though you're paying more for it. While I don't believe Delvaux has been doing this, I do want to mention that buying vintage not only presents cost savings, but it also means you get to access bags of higher craftsmanship if the philosophy has changed today. So for example, that's why I love to buy vintage Chanel, because it's no secret that Chanel's craftsmanship today is far inferior compared to what it used to be. If you enjoy structured bags and a sense of history, quality, and royal patronage in your handbags, then Delvaux ticks all the boxes. It's a fascinating balance of classic tradition with timeless modernity, of commercial success yet media secrecy, of respect within fashion circles, yet it's a complete mystery to the public. I suppose like how the bag's complex construction is deceptively simple, so is the legacy and reputation of the Brilliant. I hope you all enjoyed today's review, and I wish you a great Christmas and New Year's ahead with your loved ones. In 2 weeks time I'm going to be jetting off to Copenhagen, so next month's video will be a scheduled upload. On the topic of travel, it's going to be all my tips for trip planning and how to save money while on holiday so you can put it towards your luxury shopping, which is what I'm going to be doing. I wish you guys a great month of celebrations and catch you in the new year.